want to be remembered? And I thought his answer, of course, was just perfect. He goes, I want to be remembered as being a good teammate, respected by all the coaches and my peers. I want everybody to know I love the game of football.
And the Denver Broncos have taken Super Bowl 50.
Beer, Broncos, and
Hello
no BS.
again, Broncos country.
Welcome
Really
to
excited
Beer,
to chop up some
Broncos,
Broncos.
Orange Weekly. No politics, just football. Orange Weekly.
Always gotta rock orange, that's just how I roll. I'm rocking orange, man. Word up. I'll be rocking with the Broncos. I'm rocking orange, man. Hey. Always gotta rock orange, that's just how I roll. I'm rocking orange, man. You see it? I'll be rocking with the Broncos. I've been rocking orange since an early age. Not since 9-7, I ain't miss a game. Came up with TD and Rod Smith. I was riding with the team when they got the chip. Before the Chevrolets and the Lobster. I remember Elway's helicopter. I remember. I'm telling you, that man was a monster. Way before he had his hands on a roster. Way before. He turned the Broncos to a powerhouse. So you know I got a shout out to Johnny. Elway, he important, man. He the reason that I'm always rocking orange, man. Always gotta rock orange, that's just how I roll.
Well, here we are, guys. Here we are again. You are watching Beer, Broncos, and OBS. I'll be honest, I am not drinking beer tonight. I am drinking bourbon. Mostly bourbon with a little bit of Coke. My name's Kev Dan, and I appreciate you guys joining me here tonight. I know the Broncos had an atrocious game this last Thursday night, but as always, we are here to break down the game, talk to you guys, hear your thoughts, answer some of your questions, and just give you our no BS take. And we want to hear your no BS takes as well tonight. We may not agree on everything, and that's fine, but This team has a lot to work on, and we want to hear what you guys have to think. So before we get into that, I always want to introduce my co-host of the week, and this week it is the co-founder, Jared. How you doing, man?
Look, I don't want to say it's been a tough week. Well, it's been a tough week. I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, I don't think any of us really want to talk about it. I like your style, though. You got the bourbon, you got the snacks.
We're live right now?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're live.
Broncos, go Broncos.
Go Broncos. That's probably the best thing we're going to say all night right there is go Broncos. Right. Look, Jared, I am not going to pull punches tonight. You know me. Everyone who's watched the show before knows I'm one of the most optimistic people here at Orange Weekly.
Absolutely.
I am not going to pull any punches tonight, man. I'm just not. Good. And I don't think anybody else watching will.
Right.
So, guys, once again, my name's Kevin, and I am joined here by Jared on this episode of Beer Broncos No BS. Start, post your comments, questions, hit that share button for me, hit that like button. Give me a sad face if you want to just show how you're actually feeling. That's perfectly fine, too. But we are here for you guys. We're going to have a double header tonight. We're going to do this show, and then later at 9 p.m. or we'll call it 9:30 p.m. Mountain Time, we got the Orange Weekly After Dark show. We will be doing that shortly after this show. So, lots of Broncos talk tonight. And so let's get right on into it. Jared, we got Shane in here. Shane, this is just a good opening question. I appreciate this, Shane. He asks, so what happened to my Broncos? What happened, Jared? What happened? Take that drink. Dude, you're going to need more bourbon.
I'm going to need a lot more than this. I got half a decanter. I don't think that'll do it. Look. and here's what honestly happened. Spotlight game. Right. We had one on the first week and we blew that one. We had a spotlight game on a Thursday night and we just blew it. Let's be honest. Our defense was playing pretty well for the most part until everything started falling apart after the fumble recovery in the end zone. That's kind of where it went bad. And then in momentum shift, you can't give teams like Kansas City momentum like that. And they're a team that thrives off that momentum. They're a team that'll just keep going and roll through you if you give it to them. And our team, for whatever reason, and I'll get into this later because if we're talking about not holding punches, let me talk about Flacco for a minute later on. But look, like the whole team just seemed so defeated after the one fumble recovery, and it just looked like they all gave up. It looked like everybody on the team was just kind of half-assing it, like, oh, we're not going to win this game anyway. And it kind of was saddening. And I don't know what happened. You know, I know we were talking on the our chat for the Orange Weekly staff, and we were talking about how we were hoping that Fangio would chew him a new one at halftime and figure out what the hell happened and, you know, come out with a newfound glory. And there was none of that, it didn't seem, in the second half. So there's a lot of things to work on. Let's say that. We could be the most improved team going into next year or maybe towards the second half of this year. But right now, that is not the same team that we're used to as Bronco fans. It's not the same team that we've even seen the first 5 weeks, 6 weeks. And it was just disappointing to see.
I think the reason that Broncos country is so upset by this loss, because look, we've lost to Kansas City multiple. I think we're 0-8 in the last 8 matches, or something like that. I mean, they've obviously just been dominating the division since, you know, Peyton Manning era. So we've expected in those past years, but everyone is so hurt right now, including me, because this was the first honest hope we have had since Peyton Manning left. We sat here for a week saying, these guys have been killing it. They've been doing incredibly well. Our defense is in the top 10. Our offense is putting points up against Tennessee's defense. These guys have been improving every single week. We have an honest chance. And I'm not sitting here saying that even if we had lost 30-29 or something, that we'd still be pissed off. I mean, that's a close game. We could acknowledge that. Like if it came down to a last-second field goal or something, right?
Right.
But we got absolutely destroyed. We had 0 run game against the 31st ranked run defense in the league. Our offense couldn't do anything. Our defense, look, when Mahomes went out, again, not that I'm excited that somebody gets hurt, right? But hey, here's our chance. We're only down by, it's 10-6 right now. Mahomes is out. This should be firing up our defense, right? And it didn't do any of that. So here we have 2 teams that have a lot to prove on Thursday Night Football. A lot. The Broncos have that 2-game win streak. The Chiefs have a 2-game lose streak. We are at home. This is our chance to finally tell the NFL world, here we go. We are this Denver Broncos team that is taken seriously. And the only ones that believed it were the fans.
Unfortunately, and it's so mind-boggling that something like that starts going our ways. And literally, the chips were stacked in our favor the entire game, starting from the injuries before the game, the injury to Mahomes while we're only down by a couple points. It doesn't make sense that we just kind of rolled over and took it. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, we kind of just rolled over, and I think a lot of that starts in the leadership positions, a lot of those leadership positions that we're missing out on. So what do we do now? And that's the big question. Like, we found out what we did. We fucking shit the bed. So, family's show, whatever. We shit the bed, right? We shit the bed. And that's all you can really say. We got out there and we didn't do anything in a national spotlight in a team that's, been the underdog, and we pride ourselves, keep judging us, come up with that same energy when you come at us, right? And then we get on that national stage against a team that is a divisional rival in our house. Like, what can we do? What can we do?
Let's get to some of these comments here. Tim, how you doing? Sorry, guys, that was our initial take. Let's get to some of these comments, questions. We got Byron in here. We got Travis, Peyton Manning as GM. We can talk about that later when we talk about the leadership. That's just not going to happen. Bless is here as usual. You guys, a lot of these familiar names. We appreciate all your guys' support, and probably just go Broncos, right? That's what we're going to say tonight. Tracy, how you doing? Dang, almost forgot the Broncos showed up to play football. Thanks for reminding me. I did hear that the Broncos showed up to the stadium on Sunday, yesterday. They were like, oh, the game's today, right? They didn't show up Thursday.
That was supposed to be a pads, right? Pads only?
Yeah, exactly. Sam says, go Broncos. How you doing, Sam? Alonzo, offense, defense, and special teams are horrible. Always left Casey with a short field. Hope we improve against the Colts, and we will talk about the Colts. We will move forward. We're going to spend some time just hashing this out. Flacco
I'm going to be trashed by the time we get there, though.
Oh yeah, probably more than anything. Okay. Let's see. Shane says, I went to the game. I don't know where they were. Flacco sacked, how they got Flacco sacked 9 times. Can't do anything on offense or defense. So a lot of these same, and I know there's some comments about Drew Lock. We will get to that here soon, guys. Please keep posting those comments, questions. Again, my name's Kev Dan. I'm joined here by Jared on Beer Broncos No BS. Please grab that beer, that bourbon, whatever you need to get through this. But we appreciate every single one of you guys that are here today. So hit that share button for us. We'd appreciate it. Joe Flacco, sacked 9 times. And here's the leader of the Denver Broncos, supposed to have that energy, that person that rallies people together. And half the sacks he just took. I mean, how many pictures and parts of the film did we see where there were 3 guys open down the field? You could have easily put that ball out in the field and just held on to the ball. 9 sacks, Jared. So what's your take on the offensive line? What's your take on Joe Flacco's play? And no BS take on number 72.
So, okay, let's one thing at a time. All right, we got one thing at a time here. I got a lot to say on all this. First of all, Joe Flacco. When we first picked him up, I broke probably 5 or 6 plates. I threw some things across the floor. And then, after a while, calmer heads prevailed. I started thinking about it. He's a Super Bowl winning quarterback, whatever. But I'm going back to throwing plates across the room, man. And this is why. And what I'm frustrated with is, yes, he should be a leader. He should be out there rallying the troops and getting them out there. Not only did he show no passion, but there is a fine line. There's a fine line between showing the passion and getting really mad and then just not having it in you at all. Like there's an in-between. You can't be too passionate or else you're over the top and nobody's going to follow you. And it's just ridiculous. And he's not that kind of guy. We knew he wasn't that kind of guy. Well, we got him. What I don't like is in those 8 sacks, and was it 9 or 8? I don't remember.
9.
It was a lot.
It was 9.
But I watched all of them, and I think, what's her name from The Athletic? Nikki?
Nikki, yep.
So Nikki posted a combination video of all the times that he got sacked. And I'd say 3 to 4 of them were less than half. Less than half of them were throws that were supposed to go downfield more than 5 yards, which means all of the other ones, the ball was supposed to come out of his hands as soon as he got it. He was supposed to take 1-2 quick reads. There was supposed to be a 2-step drop and get the ball out of your hands, and he held on to it for a really, really long time. Now, don't get me wrong, our offensive line did do a great job. I'm not defending the offensive line a lot. And normally I'm a quarterback guy. I love defending quarterbacks. I like thinking like, hey man, these guys have a lot on their plates. They have a lot going on. But how many times do they have to call? I mean, and one of them was an all stop, and 5-yard stops for all the receivers and all the tight ends across the board. We're doing 5-yard stops. And I know 2 of them were open. I looked at the film and he just held on to it and he sat there. He looked at his first guy, looked at his second guy, and then he got flustered and he just kind of went down and got sacked. The reason he didn't have the protection is because the offensive line knows it's all stops. The ball's supposed to come out right away. Like this is a team game, and right now Joe Flacco's not playing team football. And I don't know what his mentality is. I don't know if he had something going on in his life, if there's something else on his mind, but you could tell that he wasn't in the game. He wasn't there for the game. And that was the most frustrating part. And all this talk, I'm never a fan of benching someone halfway through the season. I'm never a fan of that. And we'll get to this Drew Lock situation, but this might be the first time in the history of me being a fan of the Broncos that I'm like, you know what? Maybe it's time for someone else to get a chance.
Yeah. Just the fact that we can say it a million times. Joe Flacco knows what he's supposed to be doing. You know, if he's getting sacked that many times, why would he hold on to the ball? Especially in those 2-step drops. Hey, right. Get rid of the ball literally as soon as you possibly can. There are going to be people doing those quick routes that will be open.
Right.
And you hold on. Why?
And so this goes back to it, and this is why, and everybody gives Scangarello a lot of shit. Don't get me wrong, there were a lot of really, really weird play calls happening in that game, and so
fake
I'm not defending him 100%.
Sorry.
Fake, well, that wasn't Scangarello.
I know, but still.
There's a lot of issues, but I will give him a little bit of defense here, is that it's not his fault that he knows the pressure's coming.
Right.
And he calls a play that's supposed to get the ball out of his hands, and he doesn't get rid of it. Like, that's not his fault. Those 8 sacks are not on him. 2 or 3 sacks, maybe. 2 or 3 sacks maybe on him. Okay, they're bringing the house and we decide to run ridiculous routes. Okay, fine. But if we're running those short routes, that's not on him. That's on Flacco 150%.
Yeah, you can't say it better myself or any better myself, dude. And somebody, Benny, how you doing? Benny says Reisner is an animal. I wouldn't say the whole line. And I agree to an extent, but Reisner wasn't, he didn't even do anything special Thursday night.
He did.
Did he? Am I wrong? I'll admit it.
Man. Honestly, he's our bread and butter on that offensive line. And you know what? There's a lot of things going on that offensive line, and our ends are probably the worst part. And I think what we need to do is we need to move Reisner out. I think if we move Reisner out, move someone else on the inside, we might have a better job. And this Garrett Bowles thing, well, he talks about, we're going to talk about it, and I'm already almost out of bourbon. This is terrible. But I don't know what else to say and how many more times we can sit on this show specifically and defend him. I like the guy as a person. I think he's a great dude, but how is he not getting it? Like, Munchak. Look at Munchak. Look at me, Munchak. How are you not getting to this guy? Yeah. I don't understand. I don't.
Well, it goes back to a couple weeks ago when he said, I think the refs are just out to get me. I don't know what I'm, I don't think that it's anything I'm doing wrong. That's paraphrasing, but essentially saying the refs are out to get him and that he's not doing anything wrong. Well, it doesn't matter who's your coach. If you're sitting here saying, I don't think I'm doing anything wrong, you're never going to get taught. You're never going to improve. And even in this last game, every single time he gets a holding call. Straight up, his arms go in the air. Oh, what are you talking about? That's not and they were even talking, obviously the fan 104.3 is talking about this a lot as well. And they were talking about, are the refs really out to get him? Does he have that reputation of always being that guy that gets holding calls and now they're just watching it? Well, in reality, what they were talking about is these refs kind of feel bad for him. I was like, do I really want to throw another flag on him? It was how many times we're like, that play wasn't complete. It wouldn't mean anything. So I'm just not going to throw it on this one. So, these refs are probably just like, I don't want to do this again, trying to keep the game a little fair. So, if that's the fact, and that's what these ex-players are saying, then, I just don't understand what this guy is thinking and how he's showing up to the building every day with coaches and players talking to him about needing to improve and how to improve. And he's not. He is purely not. He is beyond Garrett holds. Garrett needs to be benched, and we're not going to trade him. Nobody wants him. So if you're sitting here saying we need to trade him for something, we're not.
It's too late.
He's a complete, utter bust.
I'll say this. Left tackle is the most thankless and the most criticized position on
Sure.
that football field. You know, quarterback get their praise when they have a good game, and obviously their turmoil when they have a bad game. But left tackle, there's never a time where someone walks out of a game, watching a game, and goes, "Man, that left tackle is doing a great job." It doesn't happen
Sure.
but when they do mess up, this is what happens. But unfortunately, it's consistent for him, and it's frustrating for us because if he's not holding, he's letting someone through. And why can't he move his feet fast enough to be able to get in a position that, and you know what, if you listen to the podcast, I'm going to do the podcast with Matt. Matt's an offensive line coach. And he played offensive line in Canada for a while. And he has a lot more about the positioning things. Now we're going to have him look at some of this. So if you listen to the podcast, we're going to get down and dirty a little bit more for the pregame about what it is about Garrett Bowles and why he can't get into position enough to where he has to end up holding. Like there's a lot of times the guys are just getting around him and he's end up grabbing him by the neck and grabbing him and holding him down because they're already past him. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. But honestly, you're right. Right now, he's looking like a huge bust. This is his third year. Like we can't, or is it second? Is it second or third?
This is third.
Yeah, this is third. So how many times are we going to just, his first year was okay. His second year, you kind of started noticing him more. And this year, it's just game after game after. I think there was one game after it that we could really be like, oh, he didn't have a holding penalty. Woo!
Yep. And here we are. Here we are, man. Okay, got some more comments here. Let's see. Alonzo says during the game I didn't see any emotion fire from Flacco, just going through the motions. We kind of talked about that. You're completely right, man.
Right.
Cindy, how you doing? Mark says very disappointed in our give up in the game. Huge supporter of bringing Flacco here for leadership. Still waiting to see it. Jared, are we ever going to see it?
No. If it's not here now, it's not going to be here. He could sit in front of the media and he could talk about how much he wants to be there and how much he loves Denver. And he's an import. He's an import. He'll always be a Raven, and he's not functioning as a Bronco. And we're not going to keep him long enough, I don't think, for him to fully function as a Bronco. It's not like Manning, where Manning came in and started being the leader immediately. And we're not seeing it. If we're not seeing it now, we need to figure out what the next step is.
Peter says, I mean, the guy is nicknamed Joe Cool for a reason. Can't expect him to be Baker Mayfield on the sideline. And I agree with that, but that's what you were talking about earlier. There's that range of just absolutely not caring and way too much emotion. And Peyton Manning did that. I mean, it's Peyton Manning. I hate just bringing him back in this conversation all the time. But that's a guy you can look at and be like, that's the perfect middle ground. You have that emotion, but you're that calm, cool leader. Joe Cool is way too far on the way too cool side.
Right.
And
yeah, he's supposed to say cool, calm under pressure, but when they get up and he just stands there and then they bring everybody in and he's just waiting for the next play and he gives the next play and then it happens again. If it happens 8 times in a row, how are you not learning from your mistakes? How are you not asking your receivers what they see? And this is where the frustration comes with Emmanuel Sanders. Emmanuel Sanders is getting frustrated at play calls and he's getting frustrated at him not getting the ball. And I get it. But the problem is he's not talking to each other. Flacco's not going to the leader on that team. I don't care how many times you say it. Emmanuel Sanders is an emotional leader, and I get it. And it's not always a good thing. But why are you not going to that guy and going, what are you seeing? What can I see from you? And maybe that's Scangarello too. Maybe Scangarello's not going to that guy and be like, why? What can we do with the time that he has in the pocket to push this and get the ball into one of your guys' hands to make plays? Because it's not happening, and I don't know where that disconnect is right now.
It's tough to say. It really is. Yeah, I got nothing on that other than just Travis brings up a good question. So, look, the Broncos were able to drive down the field on that opening drive. First opening drive touchdown we've had, I think they said, in 15 opening drive, 15 games.
Can we not bring those stats up? Can we just stick to the good stuff?
If you know some good stuff to talk about, let's do it. But here we are. Get some more bourbon, man. We got still another 40 minutes of this.
Oh, God, that was a lot. All right, I'm just going to.
Here we are going for 2. We get the touchdown thanks to 3 big Kansas City penalties is why we were. Anyway, here we are going for the 1, for the 1 point. We get that. It's 7-0. Holding call on the Chiefs makes it a 2-point conversion from the 1-yard line. Analytics, right. I believe Coach Fangio, analytics guy said that is the perfect, chance, the best chance you're going to have doing it. What is your take on taking points off the board against a team like the Chiefs versus, as we were talking about this, I was a big fan of being aggressive. smartly, using your brains and being aggressive. But what was your take on that? Was it worth it? And I know hindsight's 2020. If it had worked, we'd be sitting here going, oh, that was a marvelous idea. But here we are criticizing it. So that aside, what was your take on the situation?
It was a good call. I'm with Fangio on that call. You're talking about a team who knows how to put points up and against a team that doesn't know how to put points up. And we scored first. And then if you could put the dagger in it at home and go up 8-0, then now you're starting to roll. And I don't think that's where we lost momentum at all. I think, we didn't make it. And it's like, okay, but I think everybody understood why we did it. It wasn't one of those things that was like, oh my gosh, he's really going for the kill at this point. We had the opportunity. Analytics say it's a better chance to get this 2-point conversion, chance to go up 8-0 against a very powerful offense. This time, Pat Mahomes was still in, hadn't even got the ball yet. And I think you take that chance. And I still stand by that. I know obviously we didn't make it, but I still stand by that we take that chance. That's not the decision, though, that really was bad. So I stand with Coach Fangio on going for it and being aggressive on that one. Now, the fake punt, I don't know. No, I'm not an NFL coach. I'm not. What was he thinking?
I don't know.
What was I don't know. Maybe they had something drawn up that made it look better than what it ended up happening. But that was a tough call that really changed the momentum of the game. And we talked about momentum changes back and forth until, like I said, I think the point that we lost it was when Flacco fumbled it for the touchdown, and I think that was just the end of it. But that fake punt really had me confused, scratching my head.
So again, I'm not a coach either, and I think that happened in the second quarter, I believe, like mid/early part of second quarter. Right. First off, that play when we were only down by maybe 10 points or something like that at that point.
Right.
It was still very by that point Mahomes had gone out.
Right.
It's early in the game. That play screams of desperation. We are so desperate at this point that we have to do this. In addition to that, when you're on a punt and all of a sudden you put somebody in motion, that's a dead giveaway.
Yeah.
Dead giveaway. Immediately the defense knows exactly what's coming. And so the whole play wasn't even drawn up smart to begin with. Why did we feel that we were that desperate that early in the game to try to do that?
Right. Against a no Pat Mahomes offense.
Pin him back at the 20. Pin him back at the 15.
Matt Moore as the backup quarterback who ended up playing very well against us. And
don't remind me.
Cry.
Yeah, it was painful in every regard there. Let's see, Maurice. Hey guys, if you're just joining us, my name's Kevdan. I'm joined here by the co-founder of Orange Weekly, Jared himself. We are talking Broncos football. Obviously, we want to hear your no BS takes on the team, where this team is going, some changes that you think that you would want to see, and your thoughts about the rest of the season. Again, this is the no bullshit show. We're not going to BS you. As you can tell, I am not pulling punches tonight. Don't expect you guys to either, but we want to talk about what you guys are thinking. So keep those thoughts coming in and we'll get to them. Valentino's drinking some Blue Moon. I thought about getting some beer, but it's just not strong enough. Marie says Joe Flacco is washed up, dried up, needs to retire. Doris says, if I'm saying your name right, I apologize if I'm not. Flacco is what we need. Just needs to address the O-line and the play calls. We haven't had a good offense since, 2013 is what he says. And so what's your take on that? Is Joe Flacco the answer for right now? And is it just the O-line? Because if it's just the O-line, and let's use this kind of transition to the Drew Lock talk. If the O-line is that terrible, why would we risk putting Drew Lock in there and injuring him this early in the season? Why not just wait till the last 4 or 5 games when hopefully the O-line's kind of come around? We've benched 72 and, move maybe somebody over to the left side with Juwan James coming back, give the kid a chance to do something and get confidence, right? But if it's really just the O-line, what's your take, man?
So I'm going to disagree with her, and I don't want this to be a cop-out. But I will say this. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see who it was. I will say this. I think it's a combination. And like I said, I don't want this to be a cop-out. I don't want this to be like, it's a 50-50. It's not. I think it's 80% Flacco's fault and 20% the offensive coordination. And this goes back to what I was talking about earlier. when the play calls for the ball to get out of your hand real fast, why are you still holding on to it after a certain amount of time? If you see at an all stops that nobody's open, get out of the pocket, throw the ball away, or throw the ball at someone's feet. That is basic quarterbacking 101, right? And he doesn't do that. He sits there and he takes a sack. So the other thing too is I do agree. Sometimes these play calls seem a little bit outward, and I don't know if it's because Flacco and Scangarello aren't on the same page. It seems like his reads aren't the same reads that I would be putting out there. But I don't think it's a play call fault. I do think it's Joe Flacco's fault. I think, like I said, of those eight sacks, I looked back and through them and saw. I say 5 of them were Joe Flacco's fault, 100%. There's plenty of time for him to get out of the pocket, or there's plenty of time for him to get the ball out for the play call that was called. But I'm not taking it away from Scangarello. There's some questionable play calls he made. And this is the other thing with the old offensive line. I am still a believer in Munchak.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
I still think Munchak can take that line and do what he needs to. I don't know how much control he's been given as far as movement of personnel. I don't know, and I'm not in the locker room, and I'm not in the coaches' offices, and I want to say he's not getting full control of what he needs to do, because I don't think it's his decision to keep where he has people. I want to say that there's some overarching stuff about, hey, we need to keep this person here, keep this person here. I wouldn't be surprised to see this upcoming week people get moved around on all that offensive line after that terrible showing that we had. And I'm hoping that Munchak has a little bit of say in that, and that's where I'm hoping this is going ultimately. That movement happens on that offensive line. We are plagued by a little bit by injuries on that offensive line, which is rough. But I think that we can make it better than what we've been showing. And I don't think that Munchak's been given that full responsibility to be like, hey man, this is your offensive line. You put people where you need to put them to be successful.
I don't know why you would bring on a guy like Mike Munchak, one of the best, if not the best current offensive line coaches in the league. And the fact that we got him, basically because he's buds and grew up next to Coach Fangio, the fact that he has kids in Colorado. So we got him for other reasons than he just wanted to be a Broncos coach. You know what I mean? Like, he was interviewed for head coaching positions. And he said, no, I'll stay an offensive line coordinator and work with the Broncos here so I can be close to my friend and family, and then not give him control of that. And I don't know if that's Fangio. Something tells me that even Fangio is not having a lot of say in a lot, because I would love to believe that Coach Fangio, if he had control, would say, dude, you're my friend, you're the best in the league, you decide. It's on you. I'm wondering, and maybe this is just outlandish, maybe this is just me making a wild guess, that someone up top, possibly named John Elway, is saying, this is our first round pick, we need to have him play.
I don't know. I don't want to get into that talk because it makes me sad. And some people have been calling for it for years, but the last 2 draft classes have been all right. I mean, outside of that, we've been seeing very little from what draft classes we've been getting in the past couple of years. But I don't want to get into that. We talked about it. Let's talk about Drew Lock.
Let's do it.
What is our Flacco shit the bed against Kansas City? I've said that a couple times now. He shit the bed. He had opportunities to do things and he didn't do it. He didn't make the goals out of what he was needing to do. Drew Lock comes back healthy in, let's say, 2 weeks.
Yep.
If Flacco plays the way he did against Kansas City, I want to see Drew Lock in there. And this is something that your brother Jason, normally the guy that does the Orange Weekly After Dark, he posted there. He goes, why don't we take a look at what we have so that we know whether or not we need to draft a quarterback in this next draft? Why not take a look and see what he can do? And even if he's, I don't know, like a little bit better, wins a couple games and has a couple, stupid freshman moments, rookie moments, but can get the playbook and get the reads down, then maybe we have something in him. And if we don't, it's time to really look, because this is our quarterback heavy draft, and it comes once every 2 to 3 years. I do not see another quarterback heavy draft in the next 3 years. This is the time that we need to find somebody, if we need to.
Right. So do you think that only giving Drew Lock 4, maybe 5 games is enough to really judge if he's that guy? Or maybe put him in for that game against the Browns in a couple weeks. A team where, first off, if we win, great. If we lose, whatever. But this is a team that he could make some mistakes about, or make a couple mistakes, maybe make some really good plays, get that confidence, and then go into the bye week and have 2 weeks to really go through and examine his first NFL game, and then move into the rest of the season, hopefully behind a somewhat improved offensive line, making better play calls, and just gaining some confidence that way? Or is it safer just to wait until the last 4 or 5 games of the season?
I say it's safer to wait, and this is why. I don't want him to come back and rush himself back from his injury. Yeah, we could take him off IR because it's a 6-week IR, and we want to take him off as soon as we can. But I don't want to rush him back. I don't want to force him into a position because, injuries to quarterbacks are always threatening to their play. A quarterback is someone that needs to be able to step into a pocket knowing that they're going to get hit by a 350-pound dude and make a throw. And I honestly kind of see that's what's happening to Flacco too. He's getting scared to throw the ball. It happened to Peyton Manning towards the end of his years. He was scared to throw the ball a lot of times because injuries are scary to quarterbacks. And if you're not willing to step up and make the throw, or are too scared to get hit, then sometimes you're going to hesitate. And half a second hesitation of quarterbacks is just deadly. So I don't want to rush him back. But I think that the 4 or 5 games at the end of the season is enough to see whether or not he's well, especially since as you're getting towards the end of the season, teams are ramping up for playoffs. Teams are trying to make playoff pushes. This is when people play their best football. It's not the first 3 weeks of the season, I'll tell you that. It's the last 5. Maybe not the last game of the season. People are resting the starters possibly, but as you push to the last 4 or 5 games, people are trying to make pushes for playoffs. Those are when defenses and offenses start playing really well. Maybe we could see something out of him then. But we got to give Flacco a couple more chances, right? He has played decent football in this season. He has played okay football. He's been a game manager. But anytime he throws over 40 passes or 30 passes, it seems like it's not in our favor, and we can't have a quarterback that does that. It's just not a successful recipe.
Andrew, I want to get to your comment in a second, and I'm going to pull up some stats here because it's kind of intriguing. The stats don't look as bad as the score, and we want to break that down. But Ray asks a good question. Why didn't they ever run a screen when the KC blitzed 90% of the time? What was your thought on kind of the play calling in general and trying to do something like that?
So it looked like KC blitzed 90% of the time because our offensive line and the timing, they didn't really blitz that often.
They were just getting through.
Yeah, they were just getting through. They were getting some guys getting through. However, I would have liked to see a screen or two. And I don't know if that has to do with the mobility of our offensive line. I have a feeling that has a little bit to do with it. But, I mean, we've had success with the screens in the past, and I don't know if that's something that Scangarello forgot about or something that just wasn't in the game plan because of the way. And let's not, chalk it up to anything. Yeah, Kansas City had the 31st run defense or whatever, but they're not a terrible defense. They're not a god-awful defense, and we need to remember that. But maybe they saw something in film that I didn't. Honestly, I can't answer that fully for you. I'm sorry. I probably would have liked to see screens too, let's be honest. But it may have been something they saw in film that we don't know about.
Looking at these stats, guys, first downs, Broncos had 15, Chiefs had 14. Total plays, Broncos had 64, Chiefs had 58. Third down conversions killed us, 1 for 13 for us, only 5 for 15, though, for KC. Let's see, what else we got here? Total drives, we had 13, they had 12. We did have, so total yards, Chiefs did have 271, we had 205. Time of possession, we had 4 minutes less than the Chiefs. So not too terrible. That's still not great. We did have that 1 turnover. But the Chiefs even had more penalties. They had 6 penalties for 46 yards compared to our 4 for 33. When I'm looking at these stats, Jared, the stats say that it was a close game. And I just don't understand. I mean, okay, those 2 special teams and defensive touchdowns that they had, that's 14 points right there. But the stats show that, we should have done a whole lot better than at least point-wise than what we were doing. We weren't that far behind. It's not like we had 2 first downs the whole game. It's not like we had a ton of 3 and outs. But here we are, and this team just, I don't understand the disconnect between how they looked on the field and the score and these stats that show it wasn't Now, here is the one thing. 9 sacks for 79 yards lost. I mean, you're talking almost a full football field of yards lost.
Right.
Where we only sacked them that one time for a 2-yard loss. But I don't know, man. I just don't know.
Take away that 79 yards from the yards gained, and that's what gives you your and on top of the 14 points, defense and special teams, 14 points. Like, and momentum's a huge thing. Momentum's a game killer, and that's what ended up happening. We get a big play, and then all of a sudden we're 15 yards deep because we got sacked all the way back at the. It's just. As you watch the game, you can tell that it's just not going the Broncos' way, and that they weren't trying to do anything to fix that. They weren't trying to do anything crazy. And it's just been such a crazy season for them. They have a lot going on. There's a lot of stuff in their heads, but why on a Thursday night? And this is why I think we're all up in arms, right? Is on a Thursday night, national televised against a rival at home. We shit the bed at home. I don't know what else to say. Like.
Yep.
You take those 79 yards away from our yards gained, and you put that next to their yards gained minus their time sack, and that's where it gives you the answer.
It's tough, man. Okay, Pedro, you're asking a great question that I want to move on to here in just a minute, but there is one thing, Jared, that I at least want to get off my chest. Andrew, Linnea's husband, is actually asking, how about getting a new general manager? Now, I love John Elway, guys. I absolutely love him. Loved him as a player. The only reason we got Peyton Manning was because of John Elway. But in my take, and this is kind of how I've been trying to defend the guy, and I don't know if it's just the emotions of this week. I don't see him leaving before the end of his contract. But the reason I can't even really say that John Elway built the team for Super Bowl 48 and Super Bowl 50. Everybody wanted to play with Peyton Manning. So Elway got to pick, the best. And hey, Peyton, which players do you want to play for? Because everyone wants to come to Denver. We can make the numbers work, the salaries work. Who do you think is going to be best on this team? And to ask me, it was easy to build a team when you got someone like Peyton Manning. Everyone wants to play for the guy. But now here we are with no real leadership, several bad years, getting a bad reputation, all these coach changeovers. And Elway is struggling mightily to actually build a team. And so my issue is if we had an owner, if John Elway was the GM for another team that had an actual owner, would John Elway still be the GM of that team after these number of bad years?
The answer is probably not.
So here we are and that's exactly what I think.
This is two-part though. If we had an owner and if his name wasn't John Elway, he would not be the general manager's team.
Yeah. This team needs an owner. I hate to say it, but until the ownership debacle gets figured out and the Pat Bowlen trust is dissolved, I don't think there's anyone that's going to be holding these people accountable.
Yeah. It's frustrating because right now, John Elway runs this team 100%. There's no owner, and John Elway has complete control. And as much as I like the guy, and much as I've enjoyed the success with him, and I hate to give him crap while we're down, but we've been down for a couple of years, and I think we're getting tired of it. And if you just historically look at draft classes, that's what it really comes down to. So, but here's on the opposite side, if I'm going to play devil's advocate to this point where everyone's saying fire John Elway, and I'm not saying that. I'm just saying. But yeah, the last couple draft classes haven't been bad. The last couple draft classes have given us a new hope. But I think my most frustrating part about the John Elway is he still has not found a quarterback that can play football for the Denver Broncos, because the whole Flacco situation, I told you about breaking plates. Wife's still mad at me for that, by the way. I break in plates because I just don't get it. I don't understand what we talked about desperation on the punt. What's the desperation about having to go out and get Flacco as opposed to being like, you know what? I fucked up a couple times. I messed up drafting these 6'5" guys who have not a leadership bone in their body to think that they could just out athlete anybody else. Instead of going out and interviewing these guys and being like, okay, which one of these is going to have the leadership ability to be able to lead my team into success and be able to lead my team out of a deficit. And we have not had that. And that's what frustrates me the most. And trying to go out and get these guys out of free agency, getting Flacco out of free agency just wasn't a smart move. And we're starting to see it pay out. But there's been history of reasons why we're not doing well. And I think those draft classes that we talked about, the 2014, 2015 draft class, 2016 draft classes we're talking about, right? Those draft classes are what's killing us right now.
Yeah.
Because right now we should have a group of people who have been playing together for 4 or 5 years, and we don't have them because all those draft classes were busts. And that's where we're really come down to. Now, take this last 2 draft classes and let them grow and get another couple draft classes that are nice, and maybe we might have a decent team again. But we're really suffering from that lack of draft classes in those 3 years.
So I think it's safe to say that John Elway believes that we're in win now mode, that we are that close, that we just need to add a couple things and we're in win now mode. My take, we're not. We are not anywhere close to win now mode. So would it be, do you think John Elway's sitting there right now, drinking his own scotch and bourbon, maybe not watching our show, but saying, you know, maybe it's time I approach this differently. Maybe we don't take this into the win now mode for a couple of years. Let's focus on building this team up right. Let's not go out and try to find little, bandages like Joe Flacco or somebody just plug in the offensive line that's been around for a while, but no other team wants them, and see if that fixes it. Let's actually spend some time really building this team up. And maybe in 2 years, maybe in 3 years, we can get in that win now mode because we'll be that team that is actually that close. Because if you ask me, until he lets go of that win now mode and that mentality, this is just going to keep repeating itself, man.
And I think for not just all the fans, but I think for him, this may have been it. This 30-point loss at home on a nationally televised game, this might have been the holy crap. Maybe I need to rethink what is going to happen coming into next year. Because don't get me wrong, I don't think we're far off from being a winning team. I still don't think we're far off from being a winning team, but I do think there's certain pieces that need to be moved around, and it's going to be very unhappy fans if he does certain things. And I'll tell you right now, I have a couple off the top of my head that I know that he's got to be thinking about in order to make this team better in the next 2-3 years. And the biggest, hardest part about being a football manager and being a general manager as a football team is that you have to sell tickets. And as soon as you start making these moves to get into the future of trying to be a good team, you start losing those tickets. Unless you have teams like the Browns. The Browns brought in, what's his name from Kansas City? What's his name? The general manager. Yeah. Dorsey. They brought in Dorsey from Kansas City, and he started making moves that the Browns hated. I mean, they went 0-16 one of the years, whatever, fine, whatever, cool. But he started making moves, and next thing you know, they're starting to get these pieces into place. Now, they're still not a good team, but they have that group and that young mentality. They have those guys that can make that team better, but he had to take those hits as he was the general manager when he first got there. And John Elway's got one of 2 options: be the bad guy or be the guy with no job.
It's going to be interesting, man. That brings me to some of these questions we've been asked today. And Victor, how you doing? I see you here. We kind of talked about Munchak already and the accountability, and we talked about, Munchak can do so much. If players aren't going to go out there and execute, if number 72, if he's just sitting there saying, I don't have a problem, it's the refs that have a problem with me, and you can't teach the guy. So, I foresee Mike Munchak not going anywhere. And to be honest, and we're going to talk about the trade stuff here in just a second because Alonzo asking about it, Travis asking about it. We got some other questions down here about it. When there is that ownership turnover here in the next, hopefully just the next 1 to 2 years, probably 2 years, I think Elway's going to be gone. You're not going to have Joe Ellison there anymore. I really believe that, and I want to believe this for continuity's sake, that Coach Fangio and company, maybe minus a couple other pieces, are going to be the ones that stay. Usually when there's that general manager turnover, you wipe the slate clean, right? I feel like we have a good enough coaching staff that they're gonna stay in place.
So here's the problem with that is that you have that, and you have this coaching staff that comes in, you have a new general manager coming in, and the second that team, that coaching staff starts doing a little bit bad, Lovie Smith in Chicago, as soon as that new general manager came in, Lovie Smith went 10-6 and got fired after 10-6 season, right? It's because that general manager can now look at the ownership and look at the fans and go, that's not the guy I hired. Right? We didn't make the playoffs, but it wasn't my fault. I didn't hire him. That's not my guy. And that's where you start getting those issues going. And now you start bumping heads with general managers and head coaches, and you just have this really bad cycle. And it's something that the Cleveland Browns have gone through over years, something the Jacksonville Jaguars went through the years, something the Giants are going through right now. You have this general manager, hires a coach, gets fired, keeps the coach, new general manager comes in, fires the coach, hires a new coach, general manager gets fired. And it's just this roller coaster. And I don't want to get into that.
Right.
But I do like the coaching staff we have right now. I do think, and this is me being patient, I think Elway deserves one more year. I think he deserves one more year to stick around, see what this draft class does, see what Fangio does next year with the team that he can really build around, see what Fangio can do in the drafting with Elway in this upcoming year, and see what we can build on from there. But until then, I think we get one more year of both groups. And if we have another season start like this, then it's going to be firing squad.
Guys, my name's Kevin, and I'm joined here by Jared on Beer Broncos No BS. We're going to be here for a little bit longer, but don't forget, following this show at about 9:30 p.m. Mountain Time, we got the doubleheader for you. We're going to roll right on into Orange Weekly After Dark with Jason and myself. I'm going to be here for a while longer, Jared, so I need some more bourbon myself. But no, we're going to be here all night for you guys. This is the last time I'm doing the show from this room. I'm going to be moving. So it's going to be a interesting couple of weeks. We'll make sure that we keep getting the shows and content to you guys. Don't forget, we do have the Monday night show. This is normally the Tuesday night show. We got our pregame show, our halftime hash. Don't forget about our pregame and postgame podcasts. We are here for you in every sense of Broncos needs, okay? Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, here on Facebook if you're not already. We've got our Patreon, patreon.com/orangeweekly. If you don't donate, guys, we appreciate any of the support you guys give us. All that money goes directly into buying better equipment, better microphones, cameras, lighting system, everything to bring you guys better content, right? So that's how Jared's room is so well lit up right now. It's because of the Orange Weekly. No, and then don't forget, on top of that all, we give away a prize every month. We have a drawing from the pool of donors we have from Patreon, and we give away some pretty cool stuff. We're also giving away something at the end of the season as a season-ending grand prize. So even if you donate $1 for 1 month, you'll be entered to the end of the season prize, which is probably thinking maybe a Philip Lindsay jersey, maybe I don't know, we'll see. Probably something that a lot of people would like to have. And if we have enough donors, we might even give away 2 different things. So check that out, guys. Patreon.com/orangeweekly. It is in the description of the video. You can check it out there. And we appreciate any support. The next prize drawing is probably going to be in the next week or so once I get back out there in Colorado. And we'll let you guys know what that's all about. And we'll do that drawing live here. So, again, we will be doing the next show here before too long. But there is one thing that we need to talk about, Jared. Where is it? Oh, yeah. Let's see. Victor says I need to get that producer. I do. If somebody wants to produce the shows for me while I host them, I'd love the help. Pedro asked a while ago, and this is the perfect thing we need to kind of start moving towards. What just about with a week left before the trade deadline, what's Orange Weekly's best case scenario? Trade for draft capital, trade for players to make immediate impact. And we know that Emmanuel Sanders, the offers for Emmanuel Sanders at least being listened to. I fully expect him to be traded maybe even this week, if not before the trade deadline. Maybe for a second-day pick, hopefully a third, maybe a fourth like we got for Demaryius Thomas last year this time. What do you think, man? Chris Harris Jr. on the trade block?
Why? You know you can't bring him up. You can't.
I just did.
Don't do that to me. There's a lot of people on this team that I can see giving up and I can see getting put on the trade deadline, but I can't give up Chris Harris. They can't do it. We have such a crappy defensive back situation as it is.
Would you not even be willing to listen to offers?
Absolutely not.
Really? Okay.
Von Miller and Chris Harris Jr. are off limits. Absolutely. Chris Harris is on a 1 year, and I know that he's struggling, and I know that he's mad. And this is the only thing that's really got me frustrated is him and Emmanuel Sanders on that 1 year contract.
Yeah.
They can leave in the offseason if they want to, and that's frustrating for me because Chris Harris Jr. is still the highlight of our defensive backs. He's the highlight in that room. He's the only one that doesn't get targeted. He might have a mistake here and then, but it's absolutely not nearly as bad as any other cornerback that we could possibly get in his position for what he is. Now, I see this being an Aqib Talib situation where we're going to trade him because we think he's getting a little bit older and we want to get the younger guys. But we saw how that turned out for us because we turned out and got Yadam, and that worked out amazingly for us if you guys haven't noticed. So Emmanuel Sanders, unfortunately, I love the guy. And this is the shitty part about being such a diehard fan is every single one of these players has some sort of mental image. I have this like pedestal that I put them on because I can think back of games that they really made that impact, and they're the guy that made the Broncos. But at the end of the day, this is a business. Best case scenario for our Broncos, we trade away some of our veterans, and I think we trade away some guys that people aren't thinking about right now. Some of our backup guys to get draft classes, some of our maybe starters on the defense that aren't named Von Miller, Chris Harris, some of the big guys. Maybe start trading some of those guys away to teams that are playoff bound or have a better chance of making the playoffs, that we're trying to make that last push for draft picks. And that includes some of our younger guys, I think. And by younger guys, I mean somebody that was drafted 2 to 3 years ago. So don't be surprised if we see some of those guys get moved around. Granted, we don't have a lot of those guys because we screwed up the draft so many times, but don't be surprised if we see some of those guys move around. Now, I see Emmanuel Sanders getting moved. I don't want to see Chris Harris getting moved, but I can see the reason why, because he's only on the 1-year contract. He's already been vocal about not wanting to be there before the season started, and now this start to the season is obviously not doing well. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Von Miller is still off the trade block. Like there's no option.
Right.
Von Miller is going to be a Bronco for life, and if he's not, I'm going to be mad. He's the face of our franchise right now. We have no other face of the franchise. We can't trade that.
Completely agree. David asks, what about Adam Gotsis? And Alonzo asks, what about Derek Wolfe? What about those two players?
Those are the guys I was kind of way to take that from me. I was going to try to like hint at it, but yeah, those are the guys I'm talking about. Derek Wolfe and Adam Gotsis. I could see us trading them. They're young enough. They're hungry enough, and they're system guys. They could do very well stopping the run for a couple of these teams that are doing very well but have a really shitty run defense. Kansas City. And I can see them going out and getting an Adam Gotsis or a Derek Wolfe for a decently high draft pick. Now I don't think they're going for first, but I could say like third or fourth draft, third or fourth round, plus maybe a player here and there. I can see them going for those pretty high guys, and it all depends on how well. Talk about John Elway again. How well he can finagle that deal.
It's interesting, man. It's going to be a very interesting week. We're probably just going to say goodbye to at least one face that we've known for a long time, and that's Emmanuel Sanders. Really believe that he has played his last home game in Denver. And it's going to be interesting to see how that works out. There are some teams that definitely need some wide receivers, and I would not doubt what I expect to happen. We're going to take the risk of. Here's a question. Let's say we want to kind of play that game and see if teams will ratchet up what they're willing to pay for Emmanuel Sanders. Do you think it's worth playing him in this next game, risking him to get hurt, and then we don't get anything from him?
Yeah.
Or do we just have him be a healthy scratch?
No, you don't. You don't want to show your hand. You don't want to show because as soon as if we healthy scratch him, that's showing our hand that we want to trade him, and that's immediately like, okay, you guys are desperate to trade him. Then the offers start getting lower. Like it doesn't work the other way around. You have to play him, and I'd give him the ball every. I need to stop cursing on the show. I'd give him the ball every play. I'd give him the ball every single. Like I'd give him the ball as much as I possibly could. Run up the score. Have us score. We're going to score 30 points with him. And then see what we could do with him because he's healthy. He's healthy. There's the issue right now is that after last year's injury, a lot of people were worried about what his health looks like. And right now, we're not getting the ball enough to be able to show that. We need to give him the ball more to be able to show that he is healthy because his offseason has done nothing but fix the issue with his ankle. And he's back to 100%. We just need to make sure that we can show that. As soon as we show that, then the offers will come in at higher rates, and we can start demanding higher rates for him.
It's going to be interesting. I'd like to get a third round for him. But we'll see. Let's see. Rick says, was that scotch? Yes, it was. I'm drinking bourbon and Coke. You're drinking some, is that whiskey or scotch?
I think it's bourbon too.
Bourbon? Yeah, got some bourbon.
Yeah.
Let's see. couple other questions, guys, but I do want to get to kind of wrapping the show up. Remember, we will be doing the Orange Weekly After Dark show very shortly after this one. So if you guys didn't get your questions asked or answered or anything like that, feel free to come back on in the next 30, 40 minutes when we start the next show up and ask us those questions as well. I'll be here on Orange Weekly After Dark with Jason himself.
Yeah.
Jared, 2-5. Going to the Colts this next week. What are your thoughts about what we need to do this week to prepare for the team? I don't want to step on the pregame podcast, but thoughts for that, and just what does this team need to do in the short next 1 to 2 weeks going before the bye? Where are we at with this team, and where do we need to go?
The coaching staff needs to prove that they are prepared and that they are prepared to play a team that is doing very well despite losing Andrew Luck at the beginning of the season. You have a backup quarterback that they didn't even expect to start until halfway through the preseason when Andrew Luck decided all of a sudden he was going to retire. The Colts have a great defense. And I don't think I'd ever, like growing up watching football, I don't think I'd ever say that ever. But the Colts have a very good defense and they're ready to go and play us. Can Joe Flacco and company make the plays to be able to get there? Comma, quotation, the what's the dot with the
semicolon or something? Or?
Semicolon. If Joe Flacco does not show up to this game, he's benched. I don't care who we have to back him up. I don't care if Drew Lock's not healthy. I don't care who it is. If he does not play well this game, somebody is going to have to take the blame if we go 2-6. And I don't think the coach, somebody had mentioned that Scangarello is on the chopping block. I think after watching the film, and I know I'm an offensive coordinator and I have a little bit of soft side for those guys, but I also like the quarterback, so I'm also a soft side for those guys. I think somebody is going to have to take blame for the 2-6 start. And I think Flacco is going to be the one that takes that blame. And I think the Flacco should be the one that takes the blame. I don't know if that's actually going to happen. If Scangarello gets fired, I could see it. Somebody's going to have to get fired. Something's going to have to happen if we lose this game. And people need to know that, from the coaching staff all the way down to the third string center, need to know that if we do not play well in this game, someone is going to feel the burn. Now, what happens there? I don't know. But I think that fire needs to be in there. And if it's not, as it comes in the game, if we see more of the same from what we saw last week, it's going to be ugly.
Quick question. Teddy Bridgewater, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. I love Teddy. I didn't like him coming out of college. I thought he was too much of a college type quarterback, but I've seen him play, seeing him in preseason and what he's been doing. I think he's really changed up. He's really learned a lot, and I think he's ready to play real football. And I think we have a better chance of winning if we had him than Flacco.
So what would you give to get him?
I'd have to look at that. I'd really have to look at that because I don't know what they're willing to give up. It really comes down to if we want to go out and get him, what are they willing to give up? What are they willing to give us? So I'd have to do a little bit. Let me do some research. I'll bring it up on the podcast.
Yeah, I'll be listening for that. Steven actually has a good question, not other than making fun of me. So the question is, how is the offensive dynamic going to affect the next outcome? Such as, say, we replace Flacco. What is that going to do to the offense in general? And we'll leave this with this question and kind of end the show before we give our closing thoughts. And again, remember, guys, shortly after this, we got Orange Weekly After Dark. We will be back here on the air tonight, so you guys can come back and keep asking some more questions. But yeah, what is replacing Joe Flacco is that really going to change the dynamic of the offense, or are we just going to maybe see a little bit of improvement? What's your take?
I think changing out Joe Flacco for something younger and how do I put this? Someone who gives a shit more. Well, we know Flacco's called Joe Cool for a reason, and I get that. But if we replace him for someone younger, someone with a little bit more leadership in their body, then we'll do much better. Look at the Ravens. Ravens were struggling for so many years in the same offensive coordinator. Lamar Jackson comes in and starts. All of a sudden, they're winning games and they're doing very well. They just killed the Seahawks yesterday. I can see us getting somebody that is brought in that has a little bit more leadership to them, a little bit more respect from their peers, a little bit more, hey, you're not just the new guy coming in thinking you're hot shit. and that'll change the mentality of the game. A lot of we have to remember, this is a team game. We can't point fingers at individuals being an issue, but team games need leaders. And if we don't have leaders, we saw it on the defense for last couple of years. We don't have that vocal leader on the defense when we lost it to Aqib Talib. Chris Harris started stepping up a little bit, but not really. And our defense has struggled. We need that on the offense. And I think if we could find, and that's the reason why Paxton Lynch didn't work out. He's too quiet. That's the reason why sort of the reason Brock Osweiler didn't work out, right? And any team that he goes to, he's not the leader that they need. He might be athletic, he might be tall, he might be able to make the throws, but if he's not a leader, no one's going to want to go do the work for him.
Right.
If you don't have a good boss, if you don't want to go to work for your boss, then your work is going to be half-assed. No matter how hard you say you're working, it's going to be half-assed. And that's what we have. That's the situation we have on the offense. And I'm off my soapbox now. I'm sorry.
No, that's good. That's very good. And I'm leaning toward this next week's going to be interesting. Coming up to the trade deadline. I hate to see him go, but it's time probably for us to at least let Manuel Sanders go, get some draft capital.
Yeah.
And if we really are in win now mode, do something like go get Teddy Bridgewater, And
I don't, we're a little too late for win now mode.
True.
That's
I'm saying if that's Elway's mentality still. I agree that we're not. But if Elway stays in that mindset and wants to get a piece in there to help out Drew Lock, it's not going to be Flacco.
And so that's the other thing. As some of you guys that follow the show know, I've been gone for the last couple of weeks, and I need to do a little bit more research. I want to sit down and I want to see what our options are if we don't decide to go in the draft, which I still think there's enough quarterbacks in this upcoming draft that we could really get a gem in this upcoming draft from where we fall. Right now, I'm confident we're going to fall pretty low. Top 10.
Top 10?
I say we fall top 10. If we fall top 10, and I think it's because we're gonna actually start winning towards the end of the season when it doesn't matter. If we fall top 10, I still think there's enough quarterbacks in the draft, plus enough teams that aren't looking for quarterbacks to be their starter or backup, that we should be able to get one of these high quality quarterbacks. And if it's not one of the top 3 guys, the Tua or Herbert, then we should be able to get somebody that's a gem, that is a leader, that is a diamond in the rough, still a first round draft pick, kind of like a Drew Lock if he doesn't pan out. But we have to see what Drew Lock pans out to be before we try to put that in. And now all of a sudden we have 2 quarterbacks and not another offensive lineman, which is also pretty heavy in this draft.
Guys, we got Orange Weekly After Dark coming up right after this. We will be right back. Jared, closing thoughts to you, buddy.
I had enough closing thoughts. Look, I love the Broncos. I'm going to stay with the Broncos through and through. And I'm glad you guys are still here with us. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for sticking with us. We're going to be here through the highs, and we're obviously here through the lows. So stay with us. And thanks again for watching. Look, 3 years ago now, Kev, when we started this? So 3 years ago, we started this as just kind of a way to chit chat with some people about Broncos, because we were both in the military and trying to, when we go get deployed and go different places, there's not so much Broncos we could talk. But hey, it's been a crazy 3 years. Thank you guys so much for sticking with us, and we're gonna continue doing this thing because we love to do it, and your support is really appreciated. Even just watching the shows really means a lot to us. So thank you to the Orange Weekly fan base. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, I've spent way too much time and money in this to just stop. This is not going anywhere. I've all the videos I've edited, all the advertising. We are not going anywhere anytime soon. We are going to be here. And Jared was like you were the first one to hop on board with me. So this is, I can't wait to see what the next 3 years are going to bring. And when we will be back on top. It is going to happen. I believe that is going to happen sooner rather than later. And it's going to be a fun time to really see this team go from what we've been the last 3 years to being very competitive again. And so for me, Broncos fans watching this right now, you guys are fantastic. Stick with the team. It hurts. I know it hurts. I love them still. And obviously you guys still do too, since you're all here with us. And I got to say, there weren't as many outlandish comments as I was maybe kind of expecting tonight. I was expecting a lot of fire everyone and burn the whole thing to the ground. And we didn't really get any of that. So we got some good fans, man.
Yeah, I think so too. I think we've built something cool here. And again, it's all because of you guys out there watching us. I appreciate that.
Jared, really good talking to you tonight. Glad to have you back on. I know you like go through these phases where you hate me and you don't want to be on the show for a while. And if I'm pissing you off, just let me know. Oh, you're fantastic, man. I appreciate you jumping on tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again, Kev. And as always, go Broncos.
Go Broncos. We will see you here for Orange Weekly After Dark very soon, guys, in just a few minutes. Take care if we don't see you, but otherwise, catch you on the flip side. Go Broncos. Take care.